Yu Tzu said, "It is seldom that good sons and brothers are given to insubordinate conduct. That those who dislike insubordinate conduct should be ready to foment sedition is something absolutely unknown. The wise man attends to the root, for if this be properly set, virtue will spring from it. And what is the root of all goodness but filial piety and fraternal love?" Sang Tzu said, "There are 3 points on which I daily examine myself. Have I been conscientious in working for others? Have I been truthful in my intercourse with my friends? Have I practiced what I preach?" Tzu Xia said, "The man who can appreciate moral worth and disengage his mind from sensual passion, who can put forth his utmost strength to serve his parents and lay down his life to serve his prince, who speaks sincerely in his intercourse with friends, such a man, though the world may call him untaught, has in my opinion received the best and highest education." Su Kung said, "What do you say of the poor man who refuses to flatter, and of the rich man who is free from pride?" "They are well enough," replied the master. "But better still is the poor man who is cheerful, and the rich man who cherishes the inner principle of harmony and self-control." Su Kung said, "One must cut and then carve, chisel and then polish, as the Odes have it. Does not this passage illustrate what you say?" The master exclaimed, "Here is somebody at last with whom I can really discuss the Odes. Refer him to any old verse, and he will see its application."
Zhu Kung, who had passed from poverty to affluence, wished to draw attention to his own freedom from the vices characteristic of each state, but his master recommends the pursuit of virtue in a more positive form. The quotation from the Odes merely enforces the necessity of unceasing labor in the matter of self-improvement. Confucius was always delighted with an apt illustration from his favorite book.
Su Xia asked, saying, "What is the meaning of the passage? What dimples in her witching smile? What lovely eyes, clear white and black. Simplicity sets off her ornaments?" The master replied, "You must have a plain background before you can lay on the colors. Rules of ceremony then require a background?" "Ah," exclaimed the master, "Shang always seizes my drift. Here at any rate is someone with whom I can discuss the Odes."
The Chinese of the above is as usual extremely concise. For several turns of phrase I am indebted to Mr. Jennings's translation.
Su Yu said, "Too much fault-finding with princes entails disgrace. With friends, it brings estrangement." The master wanted to employ Chi Kiao Kai in the business of government, but the latter said, "No, I cannot yet sufficiently trust myself." The master was pleased with the reply. Once when Yin Yuan and Qi Lu were standing by, the master said, "Come, tell me, each of you, the wish of your hearts." Su Lu said, "I should like to have carriages and horses and fine fur garments, and share them with my friends. Nor would I mind if they were worn out in this way." Yin Yuan said, "My wish is to make no parade of goodness and no display of toilsome service rendered." Su Lu then said, "I should like, sir, to hear your own wishes." The master said, "To comfort the aged, to win the confidence of my friends, to love and cherish the young."
Literally, display toil. The meaning seems to be that of the Tacitian phrase exprobrare beneficia.
The master said, "Young might well be made a prince." Chung Kung asked a question about Susang Patsu. The master replied, "He is a good man on the whole, though easygoing." Chung Kung rejoined, "Is it not excusable for a man who is strict in his own habits to be easygoing in dealing with the people under him? But if he becomes easygoing in his own habits as well as in his practice abroad, this is surely too much of a good thing." The master said, "Young's words are true."
Literally, one who faces south, the customary position for royalty enthroned.
Jian Yu asked, "Is our master for or against the Prince of Wei?" "Oh," said Su Kung, "I will ask him that." He went in and said, "What sort of men were Py and Shu Qi?" "They were 2 ancient worthies," was the reply. Did they ever repine? He asked. They made perfect virtue their aim, and they attained it. Why then should they repine? Su Kung went out again and said, Our master is not for the prince.
The reigning duke, who had succeeded his grandfather and was now opposing his father's attempts to return from exile and secure the throne. See note on page 74.
Sang Tzu said, Ability asking instruction of incompetence, abundance sitting at the feet of insufficiency, a man of every virtue who thought he had none, solid in character yet making himself out a cipher, trespassed against but never retaliating. Such was the humble state of mind in which my late friend spent his life.
The disciple Yan Hui.
Sang Tzu said, If a man can safely be entrusted with the care of a young orphan prince, or with the government of a large province, and if the approach of a great emergency cannot shake his resolution, is he not a man of the princely type? Of the princely type he is indeed. The authorities of Lu were proposing to reconstruct the Long Treasury. Min Tzu-chien said, Why not restore it rather in the ancient style? Why is it necessary to renovate it altogether? The master said, This man is no talker, but when he does speak, he speaks to the purpose. Sumanyo lamenting said, All other men have brothers. I alone have none. Tzu Xia said to him, I have heard it said that life and death are divine dispensations, that wealth and rank depend on the will of God. The higher type of man is unfailingly attentive to his own conduct and shows respect and true courtesy to others. Thus all within the 4 Cs are his brethren. How then should he grieve at having no brothers?
Believed to constitute the boundaries of the habitable earth, like Homer's ocean river. Hence the phrase is used as a synonym for the Chinese Empire.
Qi Tzucheng said, The higher type of man is possessed of solid qualities, and that is all. What has he to do with the ornamental? Su Kung replied, I am sorry, sir, to hear you say such a thing about the higher type of man. For a 4-horse chariot cannot overtake the spoken word. The value of the ornament and the value of the substance are closely connected. Stripped of hair, the hide of a tiger or a leopard is very like the hide of a dog or a sheep.
A minister in the Wei state. A proverb.
Duke Ai asked Yu Zhou, saying, It has been a year of famine. My exchequer is low. What am I to do? Yu Zhou replied, Why not collect tithes? Why, said the Duke, with a tax of 2/10 I still have not enough. How am I to make 1/10 do? If the people have plenty, was the reply, how can the prince alone be in want? But if the people are in want, how can the prince alone have plenty?
A rebuke to the prince for his greed in a time of distress.
Sang Tzu said of the higher type of man that his culture tended to bring him into communion with friends, and his friendships tended to heighten his altruism. The disciples of Tzu Xia asked Tzu Chang about the principles which should govern friendship. Tzu Chang said, What is Tzu Xia's opinion? They replied, Tzu Xia says, Associate with those who come up to your standard. Reject all those who do not. This, said Tzu Chang, is different from what I have been taught. The nobler sort of man honors the virtuous and wise, but he admits to his society all men without distinction. He admires the good, but he also pities the weaker brethren. Am I a man of great wisdom and goodness? Then who is there among my fellow men that I will not bear with? Or am I neither wise nor good? Then other men will reject me. How can one justify this rejection of others?
Each pedagogue has seized only one side of the truth. We need not reject any of our fellow men, and yet show discrimination in the choice of our associates. See the first saying on page 53, where Confucius, clearer-headed than his disciples, puts the matter in a nutshell.
Xia said, "The inferior type of man always tries to gloss over his faults." Xia said, "The wise man will gain the confidence of the people before laying burdens upon them. Otherwise, they will consider it oppression. He will gain the confidence of his sovereign before censuring his actions. Otherwise, the latter will consider it mere libel and abuse." Xia said, "He who does not transgress the larger principles of virtuous conduct may be excused for disregarding the boundary line in matters of smaller import." Xu said, "The followers and disciples of Xia are trained well enough in sprinkling and sweeping the floor, in responding and answering questions, in entering and leaving a room. But these are mere accessories. Of fundamentals they are totally ignorant. How can this be considered enough?" Xia, hearing of these remarks, said, Yin Yu is mistaken. It is not the way of the wise teacher to distinguish between subjects of first-class importance, which must be taught, and subjects of secondary importance, which may be neglected. He cultivates minds just as he would cultivate plants, each species requiring separate treatment. It cannot be the wise man's way to produce confusion and error. He only is inspired who teaches methodically, having a beginning and an end. Xu said, "Let the official who has time to spare devote it to study. Let the student who has time to spare devote it to public affairs." Xu said, "The rites of mourning should not extend beyond the expression of heartfelt grief." The chief of the Ming family having appointed Yang Fu to be criminal judge, the latter went to Sang Tzu for advice. Sang Tzu said, "Our rulers have lost their way, and the people have long been scattered and distracted. When you discover the facts of a crime, be not moved with joy but rather with pity and grief." Su Kung said, "The mistakes of a great and good man are like eclipses of the sun and moon. His failing is seen by all, and when he repairs it, all look up to him with awe."